Right.
Yes, we have Mary Ann online. Mary Ann, can you hear us? Great. Okay. I'd like to call the regular board of education meeting to order on June 22nd, 2023 at 6:30 in the boardroom of Oak Park First High School. Please call the roll, Lisa.
Mr. Grossman,
Here.
Dr. Maharaj,
Here.
Mr. Arkin,
Here.
Dr. Livingston,
Here.
Mr. Grandmas,
Here.
Mr. Kowski.
I move to enter closed session for the purpose of discussing the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district and independent contractors and specific volunteers, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee of a public body is subject to local government wage increase transparency act, which may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this act 5 ILCS 120/2C1 and collective negotiation matters between the district and its employees or their representatives or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. 5 ILCS 120/2C2. Is there a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Dr. Maharaj,
Yes.
Mr. Arkin,
Yes.
Mr. Grossman,
Yes.
Mr. Grandmas,
Yes.
Dr. Livingston.
Yes.
The first order of business in open session is superintendent announcements.
All right, good evening, everybody. I have a few announcements. Actually, I have short announcements and then kind of a unique, special announcement at this moment in history for us. So first, of the more traditional but awesome variety. Congratulations first to senior Liam Newhart, who took silver in the 3,200 meter run at the state track meet just a few weeks ago. Also, congratulations to our boys volleyball team, which placed third in state. And congratulations to our girls softball team for placing third in state as well earlier this month. A great end of the year for many of our student athletes. In addition, I want to highlight a few specific students on that softball team. Players Alyssa Sapas, Tyler Brock, Bella Morales, and Rachel Gupta received all state honors from the Illinois Coaches Association. Great recognition for those kids. Okay, and now for the one that's a little bit of the less traditional variety. Most people probably think of a new school year as starting with the return to classes in the fall. But in school time, the official beginning of this year is actually July 1st. This year, this date is an especially significant date because it begins the celebration of the 150th anniversary of OPRS founding. And for those of you who are wondering what name to attach to that event, it is the sesquicentennial. There will be a quiz after the announcements. It may be hard to believe now, but OPRF began in 1873 as just part of a tiny building at Lake Street and Forest Avenue. The first class to graduate in 1877 comprised only 3 students who were toddlers when Abraham Lincoln was president. During the past 150 years, OPRF has become a cornerstone of the community, with our sprawling 1 million square foot building and 3,400 active, engaged, energetic students. With the help of alumni, students, staff, parents, and community members, we've been making big plans for observing our 150th birthday throughout the 23-24 school year. You can learn about the various events on our website at oprfhs.org/OPRF150. That is oprfhs.org, our website, /OPRF150. In the meantime, though, I do want to mention an especially ambitious undertaking that launches July 1, the Sesquicentennial Challenge, which is a year-long effort to accrue 150,000 hours of volunteer service in honor of OPRF. Anyone, anywhere, who has a connection to the school can participate by volunteering for their chosen cause, then completing a quick form on our website at, again, oprfhs.org, OPRF150. The website will feature an interactive map where you can see where and how many service hours are being contributed. Our hope is that by the end of our 150th year, on June 30, 24, Huskies around the world will contribute 150,000 hours of volunteer service and truly put into action those things that are best. So that's just the first of many events that we'll be having next year, and no reason to not kick it off as soon as possible. So happy to get rolling with our Sesquicentennial. And that concludes the superintendent's announcements.
Thank you. Next are the status of FOIA requests.
6 submitted, 3 resolved.
Thank you. And I will turn it once again over to Dr. Johnson for a special.
Yeah, then this one is a hard one for all of us. You might recall that at the board meeting 2 weeks ago, I announced, in a moment of silence for our director of buildings and grounds, Fred Cruz. And I have a little recognition that I would like to begin with tonight, and I have some specific message that I'd like to share. So at this time, we want to take this opportunity to acknowledge the dedicated service of Fred Cruz, our director of buildings and grounds for the last 8 years, who just recently passed away. Fred was truly one of a kind, although he presented a hard exterior that was far from who he was as a person on the inside. He was extremely generous with his time and talents and would do anything to help anyone. He truly loved his job, and he lovingly considered this his school. His dedication to his work and the people here never ceased. This was most evident in his final months when he insisted on working remotely while home valiantly battling cancer. During his time at OPRF, where people spend more time at work than with their families, Fred created a home away from home for many. He treated his staff like family and was a father figure to some and a mentor to many others. He left an everlasting impression on all of us and will be deeply missed. We thank the OPRFHS Booster Club for donating a commemorative brick outside our stadium that in memory of Fred will read, "Fred Prus, take care of my building," which were really one of the last words Fred shared with me as he walked out of my office for the last time. We are so grateful for his service to our faculty, staff, students, families, and the community, and would like to present a certificate here to his wife, former OPRF employee Tiffany Prus. And in honor of Fred, we also have several members of our buildings and grounds team who worked with Fred, both past and future, or past and present here. And so thank you all for coming out to help recognize Fred and being here in his memory. It's just still so hard to believe. So please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just like to, on behalf of the several boards of education that have worked here during Fred's tenure and the communities of Oak Park and Road Forest, thank Fred's family and express our deepest gratitude for everything that he's done for us and our sincerest condolences. So thank you very much.
Tiffany, if you could come on.
Am I coming in the middle or am I going? Oh,
Now go podium, you can go. Sit down. This is something. Yeah. Well, I don't know if you want to say anything, but you're free to.
I'll just say a couple of quick things. Most people here know Fred and I met here in this building. And fell in love in this building, for better or worse, sorry, HR. He loved this place. He loved this place so deeply, and even in his last days, he was so focused on making sure that this building would be taken care of, and that you guys would continue on with all the projects and make sure that the kids would be taken care of and the school would be ready for the beginning of the school year. And I want to thank everyone for all the condolences that everyone has sent, all the support, all the messages, all the emails, the texts. I see them all. I don't respond to them all because I'm overwhelmed, but this place will forever be special for me. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Tim.
So next we go on to public comments, I believe. All right.
Yes.
Okay, so do we have any public comments? We have no public comments, so I don't need to read those. Okay, we'll move right into the consent agenda. Before we start with the consent agenda, we are pulling letters B and K. Correct? All right. May I ask board members, are there any other consent items on the consent agenda that you would like pulled from the consent agenda? Anybody? Mary Ann, anything? Okay. No, then I will go ahead and read. All right. So these are the items on the consent agenda. A, approval of open and closed session minutes of May 25th and June 8th, 2023, and a declaration that the audio tapes of closed session minutes of October 2021 be destroyed. B, C, approval of the April 2023 financial report. D, the approval of the April 2023 treasurer's report. E, approval of the June 2023 checks, disbursements, and financial resolutions, including payroll resolutions for July and August. F, approval of engagement letters of Lauterbach Amen LLP for auditing services and award a 3-year term as presented. The breakdown of cost by year is for fiscal year 2023. The cost is $37,900 for fiscal year 2024, $39,400 for fiscal year 2025, $41,000 for a total cost of $118,300, which is included in the fiscal year 2023-24 budget. G, approval of the 2023-24 speech therapist contract for Dr. Eileen Brand, speech pathology service, which will not exceed $58,415 as presented. H, approval of the 2023 to 2024 contract for occupational therapy with Health Pro Pediatrics LLC in the amount of $57,645 as presented. I, approval of the physical therapist contract with supplemental health care in the amount of $40,420 as presented. J, approval of the Always Medical Carrier Contract extension for 2023 to 2024 as presented. Projected total expense $72,881.60. L, approval for the contract for the contract of Ombudsman Alternative Education Services, inclusive of tuition and transportation fees for a total of $78,840. And finally, M, approval of using dance party DJs as the homecoming dance entertainment for homecoming 2023 for a total of $28,950. Is there a second? Second. Okay, please call the roll.
Mr. Brennan.
Yes.
Dr. Livingston.
Yes.
Dr. Maharaj.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Arden.
Yes. Okay. What should we say about it?
We'll just return to B later on, so we don't say anything now, but let's go to K.
Okay.
With the script.
Okay, I move to approve consent item K, the property casualty liability workers' comp insurance renewal for 2023-2024. The board must select option A or B for the property deductible, general liability, sexual abuse liability deductible, and cyber liability limit. After selecting options A or B, I will then move to approve the property casualty liability workers' compensation insurance renewal for 2023 to 2024 for an estimated annual premium of $725,017 for option A, or $731,395 for option B. Okay, so we're going to discuss this first, and then,
Second.
is there a second? We need a second?
Yes.
Not right now?
Yes, we need a second.
Okay.
And then discussion. Second.
I'm begging for seconds here. Okay, Cindy? Do you want to kind of walk us through a little bit of the two different options?
So when we presented the first option, we didn't have anything that it would be in there where we could actually raise our deductible and possibly save. What we did is we went back to the broker, we spoke to them about this, and we were able to, if we were able to move our property from 25,000 deductible to 50,000, we would save $8,988. And then if we increased our general liability deductible from 0 to 25,000 and sexual abuse liability deductible from 10,000 to 25,000, we would have a $5,737 savings. Plus to the cyber liability, when I spoke about it, I said that was a $50,000 increase. Because when I spoke to the broker, she said, oh, if the board wanted to pay 50,000 more, so I thought that was additional. It's not, it was a 25,000 on top. So I wanted to make sure I made that very clear to the board that that's what was a change that happened here. So if we did these changes, we would only have a 10.29% increase, or $6,378 versus the first one. Or option A.
Any questions or comments?
Did we confirm that we cannot increase the amount of the cyber liability?
Yes.
Okay.
3 million is actually, we're one of the rare districts that would be allowed 3 million. 2 million is even pretty difficult for districts to get. Most of them are at 1 million. We're getting it because of the safety that we have, like the dual identity and that when we're logging in.
Mary Ann, any questions? Anything to?
Are you recommending A or are you recommending B?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say that, I would recommend B. Because it's cost savings to the district. You're going to increase your deductibles, but I would recommend B, because you would have the savings from that. And also you would have more coverage for cyber liability.
Anything, Graham?
If I'm remembering the discussion correctly, I believe option B was inspired by Fred Arkin.
It was. It actually was inspired by all of you, because we had questions. So, if we have questions, I'd like to come back the second time and address them.
Right, so my comment is that by increasing our deductibles on property and liability, what else did we increase on sexual abuse liability? We're gonna save a significant amount of money, which allows us to buy an additional $1 million of cyber liability. So instead of it costing us looks like about 32,000, it's really only gonna cost us in cash an additional $6,000.
Yes.
So I am going to vote for option B.
Okay.
So I would like to make a motion that we accept option B.
Second.
You want to call roll?
Dr. Livingston,
Yes.
Dr. Maharaj,
Yes.
Mr. Ramos,
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Mr. Armin.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, we pulled item B on the consent agenda, which was the personnel report. We're right now, we're not prepared to vote on that. We need to go back in for a few minutes at the end of this open session, back into closed session, then we'll come back out into open session. And we will consider B, the personnel report. Okay. Moving right along, now we're in our discussion. Okay, portion of our agenda. So the first item for discussion is the tutoring and testing center update.
Okay, this is one of those reports that we had mentioned to the board. We were going to bring forward in conjunction with strategic plan initiatives for the year, and so Dr. Fiorenza is here to give a introduction into tutoring and testing center updates. So go ahead and take it away.
Thank you. So as Dr. Johnson said, I'm providing an update on the testing and tutoring center services, which are tier 1 supports within the multi-tiered system of supports, which means it's universally available to all students. Our tutoring services are provided in our newly designed student resource center. They are provided before, during, and after school hours this year to accommodate more students and to be more inclusive. We extended the hours from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock, Monday through Thursday. Our testing center provides testing supports for students who have missed a test, need accommodated testing, and also students who need placement tests coming in to our school. And those services are also provided Monday through Friday, before, during, and after school. As you will notice from the data, those data charts, 67% of the students that go to the Student Resource Center are going there for a quiet place to study, leaving about 23% of our students seeking math tutoring, and then the remaining students seeking tutoring in the other content areas, which is much less significant than the math tutoring. I did in that report break down the Student Resource Center and tutoring usage by demographic, and you will notice in both of those spaces that 51% of the students that utilize those spaces are Caucasian students. So we have some areas and some room to grow. Qualitative data indicates that our Student Resource Center and Tutoring Center are being utilized 20 to 30% more than in previous years. And we do believe that some of that is a result of the evening hours, the quiet learning space that's available, the plethora of quiet learning space that's available, as well as just the new design. So there's more places for students to sit, to get tutoring, to engage in the makerspace. So it's just much more accessible to students. As you noticed in the data, we served about 6,000 tests to 3,361 students, and those are different students. Different students taking a test. Those demographics are very similar to that of the tutoring center. So still over 50% of the usage is coming from students who are identifying as white. While this is a tier 1 support, which is accessible to all students, it's very different than the tier 2 and tier 3 support. So as we, look at analyzing student usage and what we might be doing better, we want to ask those series of questions that I listed there. What purpose do students go to the tutoring center for? What do they see the purpose of tutoring as? Why are they accessing the testing center? What's the purpose? What barriers are we noticing? What's keeping some of our students from accessing, particularly tutoring services? When we look at grade distribution, why are our more students not accessing the tutoring services that we have available? We also have to consider that there are probably a number of students that seek out our teachers. Teachers are here before school, they're here after school to do one-on-one sessions with kids. So better understanding that will also help us to understand our tutoring center and the services we provide there. In addition, we want to look at potential changes to our delivery model. Is there anything different we need to consider to ensure that our tutoring, particularly our tutoring services, are utilized by the most amount of students possible? And then when we look at understanding how the services are accessed in relation to the resources that are spent, we definitely want to consider who's affected specifically by that demographic data, who is utilizing these services most, how much does each one of those supports cost, and then how does that cost align with our EDF model? So these are things we know we want to consider as we move into next year. We're going to use the information that we gather, and we'll have to gather that in a couple of different ways, right? We'll have to look at actual data. We'll have to get some information from some of our teachers, some financial information. And I do believe we need a student focus group to talk to students about their experiences in both of those places, the testing and the tutoring center, and ask critical questions about barriers and just understand their why. Do they understand the benefits of tutoring? And that will give us a better picture so that if we do need to make any changes, we can do that on a more informed basis and include the students in some of those decisions that we make. So that's the update. Are there any questions?
Okay, we'll open it up for questions.
Yeah, I have one question about, we have the numbers of, usage. Do we have any perspective on when the tutoring center was at or near capacity?
So, when I looked at the data across time periods, it's definitely during the lunch periods. There are a lot of students that access the tutoring center, during the lunch periods. And before school actually is significantly utilized, especially for math. We have a very specific math tutor, that works in the morning. She opens the tutoring center at 7. So there are a number of students that show up at 7 in the morning.
Couple of questions, Dr. Fiorenza. You mentioned the desire to do a student focus group. What other avenues are you going to pursue in terms of data collection? How are you going to do this research?
So when students enter the tutoring center, we automatically collect a number of pieces of data. The students scan in every time they go into the tutoring center. So it tells us who's going in, what time they're going in, what they're going in there for. So as I did here, we'll just segregate that differently and maybe look at the actual students, correlate that to maybe grades. Not really certain about exactly what we want to do with that, but I do want to understand better the students that are seeking the tutoring. How is that correlating to their grades? The students that may not be seeking tutoring from the tutoring center, because it's not to say they're not getting tutoring in other spaces or support in other ways. What is that correlating to? I think a teacher focus group is important to understand what kinds of support teachers are providing outside of the actual 47-minute class period as well.
Okay, so students that are attending the tutoring center and faculty, and that's great. My concern is reaching the students that aren't entering the tutoring center at all and have not been, and even because they don't know about it, or because they are under a misimpression about what the services are, or there's peer pressure not to engage in those services. So that's a huge student population, right?
Oh, absolutely.
That aren't engaging in the tutoring center at all.
They would not be excluded from a focus group. So if I misspoke and said it was only going to be a focus group of students who are using the tutoring center, that's not what I'm saying. I just want to do a focus group with grade levels, different grade levels of students to determine why they are, why they aren't, what their thoughts are.
My other suggestion, along with maybe multiple focus groups, but certainly including a lot of students that we know are not attending the tutoring center, would be finding a way to engage with families, because I think that there are a lot of families that either don't know about the tutoring center or don't understand how to engage their kids with those services. And so, is there a way to collect that information? Is there a way to engage families in this process of solving this issue?
Very good idea.
Yeah, I just would have, oh, sorry, Marianne.
Marianne? We'll get back to you.
Hi, Dr. Fiorenza. Thank you. So I have a bunch of thoughts on this, so I'm going to try and be organized. I'll just, as background, in my master's program, I worked as a tutor in our writing center, and at UIC, I often send students to the writing center for tutoring. One of the things we see a lot is sort of a base assumption on the student's part that the tutoring center is only for when you are in trouble, right? And when you're about to fail, and this is the same thing for office hours. And so I think there has to be a real reset of that expectation that the tutoring center is not a adjunct to save you when you're about to crash and burn, but rather a core element of the education. And I'm thinking about how one of the things that the faculty do is we'll often, in order to train students to use the library, it's usually part of the lower level English classes that we set aside days and send them to meet with the librarian and be walked through, how to access the journals and whatever else. And so I'm wondering if there's, I guess I would just say, I think maybe approaching the faculty senate and saying, you know, kind of like, is there a way that we can make utilization of the tutoring center a core aspect of all of our approach here, so that the faculty maybe, and I don't want to tell them how to teach. I know their schedules are complex, but if they can find a way to introduce, especially for the freshmen, all of them to have, everybody goes to the tutoring center for a session in the first month that they're at OPRF, and thereby normalize it as this is like the default. Of course you do this. And then that also gives you a chance to start building up relationships with the tutors and trust as early as possible. Because I think I'll close with this anecdote from my own daughter, who just finished her sophomore year. There have been a couple points where she was struggling, and we said, why don't you go to the tutoring center rather than having us help you? And she was reluctant, and we pushed, and she went a couple times, but she didn't know the person. She hadn't been there in 2 years. She didn't have the ongoing relationship that she would have with one of her teachers. And I think that makes a big difference. And so I guess I'm asking for a rethinking of how the tutoring center gets integrated into our overall curriculum, rather than it being an adjunct to it. So that's it. That's really not even a question. I'm sorry. That's my little spurt of thoughts. And I hope there's something helpful in there for you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Graham?
Just very briefly, I thought you did a really nice job with this report. I really appreciated how you presented the data, both in terms of real counts and also percentages, and then also having the student body information right handy is a great way to see it in context. I think you're asking all the right questions at the back end of it. You might consider adding some goals. For example, we're going to target X% of increased participation over a certain time. And then should we expect a report again like this a year from now, so we can find out what the research yielded?
Yes, this will be coming back.
Thank you.
Jonathan, you had something else?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, focus groups can be powerful. They also have their limitations on group speak, and they're also hard. There's a lot of data on them. Sometimes not being the best way to get at, harder to reach demographics. And so I would I think it's worth looking into both with parents and students, SMS communications, how that can be incorporated into reaching out to students where there's that additional bit of anonymity, and it's a very, this is good data on SMS technology as being a good way to reach those that are reluctant to participate or give feedback.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I want to thank you for the report. Like Graham, I thought it was very easy to read. I thought the data was right where we would want it to be. I love the questions at the end. I think everybody's at the board has kind of touched on the same thing. It's reaching those kids that we're not reaching right now, and finding the way to do that. So as you go through your research, all right, your surveys and however you're going to do it, and trying to find these kids and have them assimilate into it, think boldly in terms of expansion of hours. Even if we need a Saturday morning session, okay? Because this is our primary, this is a tier 1 support, which means open to everybody. It's equitable, and we believe that the kids have some success when they go to that. It is a support that provides some positive outcomes. So that's the only thing I would say is think boldly. Okay, anybody else? Any other comments? Thank you very much. Yeah, the next is the MTSS, the multi-tiered system of supports.
Yeah, nice job with that. Yeah, so this is this next stop on our strategic plan from the end of year updates. Of course, we had talked about earlier in the year, and also providing over. So here we have we've actually shifted how the MTSS is housed in the district this past school year. So Dr. Sonia Applewhite is here, our Executive Director of Equity and Student Success is here. And Christy McGee, our Coordinator of Learning Analytics, to share this information. So I'll turn it over to you two. Thank you.
I got the remote. Want it? It's only 4 slides.
Good evening.
The slide deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the slide deck is, we can share that with the board afterwards. There's no information here that isn't in the report, but it's packaged this way for easy kind of digestion in this setting.
Good evening. So we're going to get an overview and update of the NCSS program. Ms. McKee will give you a detailed yet brief update of the program for this year. This will include an explanation of what MTSS is, as well as what the goals for MTSS is and are moving into our next school year. So I'll turn it over to Kristen and have her go over the data that she shared as well as the report.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. I have this sign, so you guys can jump back. So I'm going to just go over the school-wide applications. Well, MTSS is all-encompassing. It's very large, and so today I'm focusing on the applications of MTSS at our school. At OPRHS, Multi-Tiered Systems of Support, or MTSS, offers a framework designed to meet our students' needs by utilizing evidence-based curriculum, responsive instruction, and data-driven decision-making protocols. MTSS is centered in equity and social justice through the use of data-based decision processes and culturally affirming evidence-based practices. To realize this success, multi-tiered systems must be supported by leadership and the community to ensure that district resources support our students who can and will learn and succeed. Overarching goals of MTSS here are to improve student achievement in academic, social, emotional learning competencies in career and college preparation, develop systemic practices so that the work of education becomes more efficient, manageable, collaborative, and effective. Create an equitable and inclusive learning community that is welcoming and nurturing. Reduce the predictability of success based on identity factors such as race or income. Increase objectivity and reduce bias in systems. Essential components of an MTSS organizational framework include a multi-level prevention system, tools to support screening and progress monitoring, and collaborative practices to increase or decrease support as needed. MTSS helps unify practices across the learning environments by being responsive to all students' needs and using data as a guide. The strong MTSS model sets the goal of 80% or more students benefiting from Tier 1 curriculum instruction and supports. Tier 2 and Tier 3 support increase in intensity, with ideally a lot fewer students and the ability to increase and decrease using progress monitoring. As you can see here at OPRHS, we have a robust pyramid of interventions and supports in both academic and social emotional instruction. As described in the report provided, we have teaming structures that collect and review screening data as well as progress monitoring tools. Decision protocols have been developed with our interventions that help our teams know when a student may need an increase in support or are ready to exit intervention altogether. Using data is absolutely essential in our model as it ensures we are reviewing all students and not just responding to overt signals of distress, which I call the squeaky wheel model. Utilizing our universal screening tools such as Renaissance Learning Star, incoming 8th grade data, as well as our early warning indicator systems, our teams are better able to locate students who need support. Areas that we've identified as opportunities for future development include better data systems.
So streamlining, having one central place that all intervention tracking is housed, automatic data flows through use of Tableau with improved visualizations for easier interpretation. So currently, all this data I'm mentioning is done in Excel and pushed out in Google Sheets, which creates lag time, cumbersome spreadsheets, and quite frankly, is just overwhelming. Also, we need to continue to respond to student needs, adjust or add interventions and supports, and improve our practices that have been impacted by the pandemic, areas of turnover, and the learning curve of new systems such as Panorama and Tableau. Overall, MTSS at OPR is dynamic. We expect it to change and evolve based on internal and external factors. However, at its core, it should be student-centered, informed by data and evidence, and grounded in equitable excellence. So any good presentation or data set should tell a story. I would like to shamelessly plug one of our students who gave me permission to share her story. Akeisha came to us and started her journey in one of our tier 3 reading classes. I had the chance to catch up with her and her reading teacher, Ms. Layfield Kurzov, not pictured here. Akeisha told the story of how she came into the class hating it, not wanting to be there. Those are her exact words. But as it continued on, she realized, maybe I definitely need this. Again, her exact words. She discussed with us how she bought in and grew. When asked what was the game changer, she told me how that Ms. LP, so her teacher, loved and cared for the students, not just cared for them, but she cared about their education and success. She said, trusting that the teachers had her back and putting her pride aside, coming to class every day and doing the daily practice, she was able to grow and achieve. Akeisha's reading skills grew and she eventually exited reading supports as a grade level reader. She returned to the program for senior year as a student leader, or what they call here Silks, with Miss LP and worked with our then freshmen. Akeisha is now an elementary education major and the author of 2 children's books, Gracefully Made, which I brought my signed copy, and James Moves Away. Clearly, we are incredibly proud and inspired by Akeisha and her hard work and success. I think that this story is important for a couple of reasons. Making progress and interventions requires a true partnership between the students and the teachers. Students taking ownership of their learning is the most critical aspect of the process, and certainly part of the work we need to do. Second, I would be remiss if I did not bring up the tireless dedication of our intervention teachers. You constantly hear about the challenges of learning loss and mental health caused by and exacerbated by the pandemic. These teachers have carried a load far greater than most, and I think it is important to acknowledge that. Without their hard work, growth mindset, and care, none of this would be possible. And that's Akeisha's Amazon page, in case anybody's interested. Any questions?
Okay, questions? Anybody? Bram?
Okay, I see that our MTSS triangle is modified from the basic one. We've got a lot more things in it. Because in your report, first you presented sort of a general MTSS model, then you presented the Opera. So, you know, our board has been talking a lot lately about how concerned we are regarding student wellness and mental health. There's a lot of the elements of the MTSS that address that. Are there any disconnects we should be aware of? For example, we're worried about this. You guys have a lot going on. Are there more resources you need? What, if anything, do we need to do different?
I think one of the things that this school year did for us is allowed us to catch up a little bit on that question, right? The first year after the pandemic, it was like your head was spinning, you were trying to catch it up. This past school year, we were able to sort of step back and start understanding that a little bit better. We were, as you saw in the report, we had a lot of turnover. We were understaffed this year. So some of the tools we wanted to deploy, how we weren't deployed to their fullest. And so one of the things that we're going to be working on in the future is to maximize all the things we have here. Now, having said that, the conversation is constantly about the sheer need of the mental health. Around social media, you probably all have seen what came out recently about the surgeon in the morning about, teen mental health, especially around social media, diving into that better. Really making sure our structures are really responsive and not just crisis oriented. Making sure the interventions we're giving are evidence-based, but also are, I probably saw in the report too about how we are trying to shift to progress monitoring, real action, active time during the class on what's being going on, so we can see when kids aren't responding to an intervention in that setting, what needs to happen next. I was just talking with Dr. Applewhite today about some of the evolutions that I am noticing of possibly lacking areas that we have that I want to explore. I frequently network with other schools around what they're doing. And some of the concerns that I have, I'm seeing represented in other schools and realizing like, yeah, this is real, right? Like this isn't going away. There's like this level of denial you kind of want to live in sometimes. And so how that works, and even though I presented academic and social emotional separately, because that's generally kind of how it looks in the pyramid, we know that these things are really, right? Rarely do you have a kid that just lives in one side. So that's the other, breaking down silos within our school. Making sure our service providers and stakeholders can collaborate more effectively. That's why I talked about the data. We have a major data problem. We have probably like 10 spreadsheets that we're constantly, going between, and that can create, like I said, that lag time. So there's a lot of systems level improvement that we're aware of, and we feel that sense of urgency on. I feel really good about our model overall, but I also think that there's definitely areas, especially that we're going to need to improve on.
I just have a comment which builds on Graham's question. As you identify those best practices, as you're talking about school districts, as you are finding solutions, I hope that you and Dr. Applewhite and Dr. Johnson will come back to us. This is an issue of huge concern to us, and we want to make sure that we're giving you the resources that you need. So as you encounter new solutions, please don't hesitate to bring them back to us.
Yeah, I would second that. If this could be a frequent coral reef of sorts that we can gather under and discuss the what's needed to improve and modify existing efforts, absolutely and completely echo that.
Yeah.
And on a side note, it's thrilled to hear that you're using Tableau, because Tableau is fantastic.
It's great, right? We're super excited, and we're just starting to really get to a place where we can use it with some agility. So I'm really excited.
It's from a data infrastructure it's great, and it's complementary with so many other suites out there. So it's very glad to hear that.
And like I said, today's report was around this framework. So it's really hard to deep dive into all the things that are happening. And one of the things in the report that I put to the next steps is to come back and be more specific around the programs and evaluating those and see what's going well, and what maybe needs to be tweaked or even added. So I think that's a part of the next steps in general, and Tableau certainly will be critical in helping us do that more efficiently than we are doing right now.
Mary Ann, anything? Okay. A lot of what I had the same questions as my colleagues, but I do have just one kind of anecdotal question maybe is, are we getting the data that we need, all right, from our feeder schools? I mean, there's been a lot, we've talked about that over the years.
Oh, we talk about it a lot. Yeah, that's why I'm looking, I'm smiling about this question. So, yeah, go ahead, please.
Honestly,
Yes.
I would like to we get the basics for the sort of academic understanding of who might need, who's presenting a profile that might require an intervention. a reading intervention, math intervention, a different level of instruction, right? And collaboration with special education is around that as well. We're not necessarily collaborating yet with them around things that would help articulate our social emotional types of support, such as attendance or even just articulation, human to human. So these are things that I think the tri-district data agreement may have opened up for us, and that still trying to learn those parameters of what that can look like and how to build that in terms of student level. I know there's a lot of articulation happening. Dr. Durans is doing a ton with reading and math and academic from a curriculum point of view. But when we're talking about actual students, I think that there's a lot on the table.
Yeah, I was gonna add something, but you added it, so good. Yeah, that's right.
Well, so we will progress in that area.
Yeah, the tri-district agreement that we have right now is a necessary step in place, and so the challenge, as you pointed out, is not that. Right, the challenge is, you know, in our growing use of our partnership over time, and so that's true in anything. You know, you started this presentation off by talking about Kristen, where we were last year post-pandemic, as we were standing up a lot of systems back in person for the first time in some new ways. And that's certainly true of that agreement that was being approved at that exact same time. So it's growing over time. There's no doubt about it. There's good progress there, but there's room to grow.
And we're down a man, a significant person this year. So I've been covering 2 roles, and that certainly next year when we're full force, I think we'll have more capacity as well to start making some of those connections that are going to be critical for that and establishing some of those practices.
Yeah, I think when you asked the question about like what resources do we need, I think the main resource we needed to, in order to get the NCSS program to run more efficiently, was our human resources. And so now we are going to be a lot more efficient in that, because now we're getting the right people in the places to be able to be more effective in this department. So with our NCSS coordinator coming in, and so now we'll have people in place in the right position to where we're not having multiple people in front of kids. We'll be able to better collect our data. We'll be better able to make those relationships and connections that we need now. And so I think with the onset of the MTSS coordinator, we may be able to change those relationships and better get some of the data that we need.
Great. Anything else?
Just one more question. Do you see an opportunity to grow with third-party partners in the community? And have you identified, I'm just thinking like Thrive and other organizations that can have a more muscular presence in the school? Has that been a part of the discussion, and what the additional resources would be required to provide such things?
We have been talking to some outside organizations, so we are also analyzing other ways that we can bring in support to benefit the program. So Kristen and I have been tossing some ideas around. We haven't come up with anything concrete just yet, but we are looking at those avenues, yes.
Anything else? Anybody? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Now we'll move on to policies for first reading. We have several policies here. I will read the title of the policy, and if anybody has any comments or questions, just feel free to jump in. All right, so to start with policy 7:1, policy 2:1700, procurement of architectural engineering and land surveying services. Anything? Questions? Next. Policy number 4:45, insufficient funds checks and debt recovery.
Fred, can I ask, so I'm sorry, and I was reading this and I got really confused. So just to kind of clarify, so I see the note that historically the IOC has been reluctant to pursue school lunch deaths under the LDRP, and I'm always a little wary when we rely on, like sort of practice has been to not pursue this, because that kind of opens it up to, but they could do that tomorrow, right? And I'm just, I don't know. I think we should feed kids. And I think you can't study when you're hungry. So I'm just not sure I understand what's going on in this policy in terms of us in particular, and what backstops we have on not whatever IOC does. Does that make sense as a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's understandable. Do you?
Yeah, I sort of Cindy up to help explain kind of our food program in relation to the policy. That's what I really need help
So,
defining myself.
yeah, so there hasn't been a point to those not fed students. A letter would go out letting parents know, just like they do if there's an outstanding fee from any, when we charge our registration fees or something like that. We should email to the parents to let them know. We should send it out quarterly to let them know that there are fees. And the same with food service. If at the end of the year, there's money on the account that a student could owe, we actually add that on, so it would be tacked on to the fees that they would owe to the district. But at no time would we not fed a child.
I'm sorry, Cindy, I missed the last thing you said. It came through a little crackly.
It's probably my voice too, sorry.
No.
At no time have we not fed a child.
Okay. Thank you. That is my main concern here. I mean, this is a relatively, well-resourced district, and it would be distasteful, I think, if we were getting niggly about that. So anyway, I think I'm fine now. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other comments on that one? Okay. Next, policy 4:100, insurance management. Yeah, I didn't have any questions. Okay, next. Policy 2.80, board member oath and conduct. Anything? There's an exhibit to this one. So the exhibit, policy 2.80 E exhibit, the Illinois Association of School Boards Code of Conduct for members of school boards. This says there were no changes to the adopted version. So, any questions? Next is policy 5:230, maintaining student discipline. Anything? Next, policy number 6:10, educational philosophy and objectives. Okay. Next is policy 6:190, extracurricular and co-curricular activities. Anything, any questions? This is just a 5-year review or something.
Yeah, most of these are 5-year reviews, and so probably fair to say for all of them that fall into that category, our admin team has reviewed them. And it actually is really in sync with something we have done as the admin team at the conclusion of last school year. And if there were any changes or recommendations that we wanted to make, we would have presented that here as well. So we're happy with these policies in building those months.
Policy 6:240, student travel. Policy 7:275, orders to forego life-sustaining treatment. Policy 7:330, student use of buildings equal access. And then finally, policy 8:25, advertising and distributing materials in schools provided by non-school related entities. So no comments. These will come back to us when,
They'll come back to us.
in July?
We'll be doing in July.
Yeah, we're
So-
doing in July.
In July.
Like the reading option.
And that'll be removal.
So if any board member goes through these and you have comments, we'll address them again in July.
Okay.
For the second reading, okay. Next, any sort of district, community and state reports.
Yeah, and just regarding just kind of a caveat for on all of this, since our last meeting in May, we haven't had any, building committee meetings because the school year had ended. So anything that falls into that category, there are no additional pieces of information to share.
Right. So that would be like the students. Supervisory council, no iGov.
There,
No,
yeah. Wait, no.
Was there an iGov? Yeah, it was my.
There was iGov. Let me report to you.
Please do.
So we met, and it was I think the main things to note is that the current person who has been running the iGov meetings, I'm sorry, I'm going to blank on his name because I didn't take notes because I forgot Tom would not be at this meeting. He was also at the iGov meeting. Is finishing up after several years. And so we're going to have to find somebody new to run the meetings. So that'll probably be resolved at the next meeting. And we're mostly onboarding the various new members of iGov and kind of setting some sort of what is this organization, making clear that we do not make policy. It is not that kind of group. And talking about the forums, we typically host community forums in the fall and the spring. And we are hoping to do one in, I believe they were looking at October or November, focused on mental health was the consensus. So I'm excited about that, and there's obviously a lot of development work to do on making that happen, but we'll get back to you with details as that firms up.
Okay. There's no community finance committee.
We have one next week.
Okay. Culture, climate, and behavior. No. We have board members signed.
No, we haven't had a meeting either, so we'll have to do that before the next meeting in September.
Apple. Anything? No. Sustainability, probably no. Facilities, no. Community council, no. Husky boosters.
They have had some meetings, so I haven't been at their meetings, and I don't know if anybody here has, but I will just give an update that we've been collaborating with quite a bit on both the mural that the board approved recently. It is up, and students are there working away every day, and it's coming together, right? Faster than I would have anticipated. And they also had a very successful golf outing fundraiser 2 days ago. So they're busy, no doubt.
Okay, great. Applause.
I don't have a report, but I have a question. Yeah, Trinity Castro, who's president of Applause, did send along copies of the meeting minutes from the last 3-4 months. Is that something that I should be forwarding on to the board? Would people like to see that, or?
Yeah, I think we can link that on the agenda.
We could.
Okay, I will.
Those kind of reports.
Okay, I'll send those in then. Thanks.
Okay, and Alumni Association, nothing to report right now. So next topic is future agenda items. Anybody?
Yes, so I do think that, you know, we've been talking a lot about the mental health issue, and I think it certainly merits looking into establishing a separate committee dedicated exclusively to looking at how we can better apply structure and process to be more deliberate about consistently digging in about this topic, and whether that means establishing a separate committee dedicated to that. I just think it's worth discussing, instead of just putting the onus on the employees to come to us when they need stuff. It'd be nice to have a more deliberate, real-time structure and process to be really doing this. Because it is a crisis, and it is something that merits our divided attention.
I just had a thought. What would you think of this if we planned sometime in the first semester of next year, this coming school year? So some type of a, whether it's a town hall or a community forum similar to what we did in safety. But we could have some of the community mental health providers and experts come in and talk about it. And maybe, and along with, I mean, obviously our professionals, and it might give not only us, but also the community as well. You know, the understanding of what is available, what we are doing, what we should be doing, we can be doing. It's just a thought.
Yeah, these are all suggestions we can explore, take a look at. I'm looking at Crystal Park back there is nodding her head saying, yep, let's talk. So we'll get some thinking going around this idea and update the board.
Okay. Anybody else? Graham? Marianne, any future agenda items? Okay, then I will move to recess. Open session, because we need to go back into closed session. So I want to thank everybody for coming. And we will go into closed session and then come back in quickly for one voting item in closed session.
I need a second.
Thank you.
Okay, do we need to vote all in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
Hi.